New at 10, a push to connect San Antonio and Austin, and you won't need a car for this trip. KENS 5 reporter Holly Stouffer takes us on a journey of more than 100 miles of trails.
I've been riding bikes since about the 7th grade with my dad.
Riding a bike takes Shad Purcell down memory lane.
It reminds me of being a little boy, just get on 2 wheels and go. It's this incredible, beautiful freedom of knowing, the world's open and I can go.
Adventure calls him weekly.
How many miles a week do you get to ride now?
For miles at a time.
For me, I'm gonna ride 60 miles a week. The longest ride might be 70 miles.
Some of his fellow bikers,
hello, good morning,
quadruple that.
Sometimes buddies of mine are going to ride 200 plus miles a week, so they have maybe what you call it an addiction, or maybe they're the healthiest people mentally and physically I know.
Shad may not be in the lead, but his longest ride is on the horizon.
I've never ridden over 75 miles, but I've been riding bikes for about 30 years. So the dream, the goal for any cyclist, like the bucket list, is you got to ride a century, you've got to ride 100 miles. So it will happen for me someday for sure.
And someday, that 100-mile stretch won't be far from his front door. It's called the Great Springs Project, an effort to connect 100 miles of trails from the Alamo to the Capitol. CEO Gary Merritt knows what you're probably thinking.
This is a big Texas-sized project. It's really a big civic gift to Texas, to give people in the most rapidly developing part of Texas and one of the most rapidly developing areas of the country more places to be outside.
The name of the project refers to the springs the trails will connect, starting at Barton Springs in Austin, traveling down to San Marcos Springs, then Comal Springs in New Braunfels. The journey wraps up at San Antonio Springs, which feeds the San Antonio River.
Let's say you wanted to hike from Kyle to Buda, or you wanted to hike from San Antonio to New Braunfels. You could do that in a day, and you could spend a night in a nice bed and breakfast, or a hotel, have a nice dinner and a glass of wine.
Along with the economic impact, the Great Springs Project also benefits the environment, from the animals that live there to the Edwards Aquifer.
So our goal is to add an additional 50,000 acres of parks and open space, protected lands between San Antonio and Austin.
And believe it or not, a third of the trail is complete. The Salado Creek Greenway in San Antonio is just one example of a local trail already done.
By building out trail systems in the cities from San Antonio to New Braunfels and on all the way to Austin, those trail networks get bigger and the gaps get smaller.
It's estimated the project will cost hundreds of millions of dollars. They plan to collect that through private investments and philanthropy, along with local, state, and federal funds.
Since I'm an ultra runner and an Ironman athlete, anything that has to do with outdoors and trails, I was all about it.
Fellow nature enthusiast and board member April Ann Sierra is another person helping the Great Springs Project become a reality.
I'll get the communities involved and excited about this project, but also my connections with those involved in politics and the local communities, as well as investors. I think I'm going to be able to get a lot of folks excited about what's going on and get full involvement from them.
The plan is to finish the entire trail by the Texas Bicentennial of 2036. That means Shad's memories of biking with his dad will come full circle.
If we can get to build a trail from Austin to here, I've already got commitments from my son that we're going to cover this thing.
All right, we're doing another roundabout.
Even if it's much later down the line.
He might be in his 30s, I might be in my 70s when it's completed, but it's a good thing. This is it's good for the environment, it's good for the communities, it's good for our bodies. So absolutely, I'm on board for this good thing.
He plans to enjoy the journey as much as the destination. Holly Stouffer, KENS 5.